Hello MMA community, YouTubers, and all the happy people from, if you were my followers and taking notes on who to play money on and who to bet on for yesterday's UFC card. So before we get into the I told you so's and nobody's ever had a night like mine's yesterday where I went 100% on my prop bets, like 80 something, 90% on my regular bets. And awesome parlays came through for us, even with some stuff that went wrong with, like the Kay Hansen robbery, where she literally, in significant strikes, in submission attempts, control time especially, and significant strike, which is the two most important things, she more than doubled her. Literally in everything, takedowns. Like, the only thing that I found where Kay Hansen lost to her in was body strikes and head strikes, but were not significant. Just like when she was on the ground doing that tip-tap stuff, like she won in a tip-tap insignificant. So for the insignificant strikes, Kay Hansen lost that, but control time, takedowns, significant strikes on the, like, even ESPN's records, UFC records, my own. Like, while I'm watching these fights, as a former fighter, I know how to score these things. So even the ones, I'll tell you, the fights that I predicted correct, that they did end up going the way I predicted and that I won, some of the scorings were in the decisions from the judges were incorrect. So the entire night, the judges proved to be incapable of doing their jobs correctly. Even the ones that went my way and the correct person won, they didn't score it correctly. They didn't even, like the split decision for the Gravely fight. How did one judge give it to the other guy, Gravely's opponent? And how did one judge give the fight to Felder? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And so a lot of things. And it started even from the first fight. DeMeas got 30. I picked DeMeas to win. I said it was going to be in the line, but he lost the last round. The third round, Roque Martinez outlanded him substantially and did more work, and he still won. They gave it to DeMeas all 3 rounds. Like, I don't know either. So this taught me a valuable lesson. Here's the good news before the other good news. I got more good news following this good news. The good news is my perfect system, my bulletproof system that took me a year or so to develop and master, I've just tweaked it a little bit to make it now at its pinnacle. It's at its very absolute best, because this is what we're going to start to do different now. As a Patreon, you're going to notice much more tickets cashing in, much less things that we got to start worrying about. So we're going to be more selective. We're going to pick our fights that we bet on more selectively. We're going to focus more on the fights that we know will be not having to go necessarily to the decisions, unless we know, because one thing I'm better at than calling fights and predicting fights is the politics behind UFC. And I'll give you an example of, like, some of the things that I mean. Like, I know when the UFC is trying to get behind somebody. I know when the UFC marketing machine is trying to push people, and when they're giving them the perfect fights, the matchup styles that are just perfect for them, and why they're picking and choosing and favoriting certain, like, for example, did you ever ask yourself why for this weekend's card coming up, the Figuerido and Perez card that's coming up, did you ask yourself, why is Brandon Moreno not the guy fighting Figueiredo? Or why was Cody Garbrandt in there before Perez or Brandon Moreno? Because Garbrandt, who wasn't even ranked when he accepted the fight in that division, wasn't even in that class, got the fight before everybody because he's got star power, he's got following, eyes, they'll have more views and more marketing abilities behind him and following viewers that'll be coming with that fight, opposed to just going through the rankings like they should. If in any sport, the best team fights the best team. It's a competition. Whoever makes it beyond the regular season goes to the playoffs or the postseason, and then they become the champ. That's not how this works. There's a guy called Sean Shelby, or whoever it is at this point, that's matchmaking, and there's a guy that's next to him that's called the marketing man, and he's telling, they're both putting their heads together saying, okay, instead of giving number 1 guy this or number 2 guy that, let's give number 7 this because we'll get more views. It'll give us more sponsors. It's a money thing that becomes, and I don't blame them. I mean, if you can't make money, you can't pay your people. You can't bring in the better fighters from the different organizations. You can't do more sponsors with that look, and you can't pay the people that keep them and from going to other places as well. So it keeps the world going around and around, and at the end of the day, it pays the bills and whatever. So I understand. I'm not knocking them for it, but I got to be hip to it. I got to understand why they do these things, which will help me pick the cards better. So for example, one just perfect example was on this card where this made a difference was like we have to start focusing on not just what I said about picking the people who are going to be better at the finishes, but we're also going to focus like on more so the things that, like, here's a perfect example. On the Marcos fight, like when there's a fight that's not going to be, because we can't do parlays obviously when we have to worry about decisions, because even if we pick the right, even with the right, that's what I told you guys before, if you have all the right picks but you don't know how to implement it in the betting, that's the benefit of being a patron. I show you guys and give you advice on how to bet it. Even if you have all the right picks, if you don't know how to implement it, you can walk away with a 90% correct record and still not win money or even lose money. But if you know that there's going to be a fight where there's two powerhouses that are going to be able to knock each other out at any given moment, let's not take the fighters. Let's not pick a winner. We have the option of picking the under. On the co-main event, the Abdul Hassan fight versus Chaos Williams, I cashed in on the under on that, and I even put it on my Twitter account. I put it on my, I posted on the message board. I put a pin on it for my patrons. On the prop bet, go under 1.5. I even told them if you picked Abdul Hassan early on, you may consider wanting to hedge. So be vigilant on that fight. So when you see fights like that, we have the advantage over the casino of not having to bet on every single fight. And so you have the choice of either skipping it if you don't have a great feeling, a strong 100% hunch that it's going to go one way and one way only. Find the better next best bet, which was the under. We know this guy's got 10 finishes in the first. All 10 out of 10 of his fights came in the first round. Why not go with the under one way or another? And that's why I told you that even when I hedge bets sometimes, they both cash in. I don't hedge where one has to take a loss and it takes out of my profits. So that's another benefit of being a patron. Here's the other thing we're going to talk about, okay? I'm going to give you guys some other tips that are going to help, because remember, I'm only going to, unless you're one of my Patreon members or the members that are just getting the full breakdowns rather than the free breakdowns that I'm putting on YouTube for the public to see, that's only got a specific portion of the cards. Like I'll only add like half the card on YouTube. The rest of the content will be only viewable to my members. Well, here, let me give you guys some, oh, by the way, we cashed in before I get to the next week's card breakdown and give you the first free portion of that card. Let me talk to you about some of the stuff that we did yesterday, man. Strickland did exactly what we thought he would do. If you looked at the comments, even when the one of the members had asked, what made you switch your pick from Allen to, because I had Allen on Heinisch over beating Heinisch, but then they asked me, why did you go from Allen being high on Brandon Allen, when he was fighting Heinisch, to switching to Strickland over Allen? I said, well, it's not about favoritism. It's a different style matchup. I could see that. I said it in my video, and I said it in the comments way before the fight started, several days in advance, that this guy Strickland has the ability to use his reach advantage. He's long. He's coming in better and stronger than he was even before his injury. So besides the muscle mass that he's put on that I noticed, he seems focused. He knows, he's very confident. He's looking more confident than he ever looked before, but also he knows how to use angles. I'm a boxer more than anything else. I've studied different forms of combat, but my specialty was always boxing. So when I see a good boxer, boxing and wrestling are the two biggest, most important things in mixed martial arts. If you ask me, it's more important than jiu-jitsu. It's more important than karate, taekwondo. If you have boxing and wrestling, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. This guy's got elite level boxing, and with his length especially, combined with that level of skill he showed, it's hard, man. The takedown guy is going to play right into his hands, because Allen became, just as I predicted, desperate for takedowns, and with his capability to cut angles and move side sideways instead of just back and forth. And, you know, his footwork, his head movement to avoid striking and get out of the way and stuff the takedowns. I didn't just tell you he was going to stuff the takedowns. I told you that every time Allen came in for those takedowns, and as soon as he closed the distance on Strickland, he was going to get punished for it. And that's why we saw him look like a mess. Early in the first couple of rounds, he looked like he was in a 6-round battle already. He was getting killed. His face looked like a mess. Right off the first minute of the first round, he was all red. And that's just a glimpse of what was going to happen if he continued that. So he was going to have to get desperate, or the second and only option I told you he would have if he, because he's not a chain wrestler. I told you he's not like a Khabib where he's going to continue to go for takedowns. He's going to have to get into Strickland's world now, where Strickland's got not just the advantage physically, but skill-wise. And that's why it was just a mismatch. And that's why I said I was so, if you quote, you can quote me, I said the odd makers got it wrong. I was surprised that not only did the odd makers, the professionals who work for the casinos who set the lines, get it wrong, but all the other guys with the podcast. Every podcast I've seen before me was high on Allen. He's never had a loss. He's going to have a field day. He's going to ragdoll it. Everybody, these guys are, I know with all due respect, I don't like talking down on anybody, but there's levels to this, just like there's levels in fighting, just like there's levels I've been a fan before. I know the politics, I know the fighting aspect behind it, I know the training aspect, the weight cutting aspect, I see it all. You cannot get anything past me, man. And being a fan, as long as I have been a former fighter, just I don't expect anybody to be on my level. So keep following me. We're gonna do good. And here's more importantly than anything else, I've mastered the betting aspect behind it, which is the hardest part. Like I said, you can have all the right picks. So this is what we're gonna start doing that's differently from now on. We're gonna focus on finding the value bets, the ones that aren't huge favorites that should be huge favorites, or the ones that are underdogs that should be favorites, like in the Strickland fight. And that's where we're gonna put the majority of our money. So leave it to the brains behind the operation to find these fights. So we're not gonna have to invest 90% of our money being dispersed on this. We're gonna find the cream of the crop, the ones paying the best money, and that's where we're gonna focus on. Because not only then we have a less likely chance of being wrong, and our accuracy rate will be much higher, but our profits will be much higher. So I expect now with these little tweaks that I made, these lessons that I learned the hard way, even on a profitable night, are going to pay in the highest dividends than any other corrections that I made. So we had a system that worked beautifully already, that's shown to be proven to always get us in a winning profit side. Now we're going to take that, because I'm a greedy guy, man. I know I'm greedy. I'm a perfectionist more than a greedy guy, actually. I shouldn't say greedy. I got to choose my words more wisely, because a perfectionist is not going to be happy with 90% on his test. He wants 100. And that's where we're going to go for 100. Just like the Marcos fight, I told you I'm not betting on Marcos or the unproven girl, because she's never fought in the UFC, but I do think that she is a little bit better. So that's why I had my patrons just bet on the over 2.5, because I know Marcos, Iraqi, Assyrian, Middle Eastern descent, like myself, has too much fight in her. She's not going to ball up and quit, so this girl's not going to take her out easy. But the other girl, who's also the more skilled, better wrestler, is not going to be taken out or submitted easily, because she can hold her own on the ground as well. So it was definitely going to be an over 2.5. So we bet on that, and we cashed in on that instead of having to pick one that we might have lost. So excellent job there. We had almost a perfect night until the robbery on Hansen. But let me tell you guys something I learned about Hansen, guys. Hansen and Granger both. I don't care, even though I picked it right, I don't have any regrets. I picked the right person. Even at her worst night, Hansen, and the other girl's best night, she still won that fight. So that's why we had the right pick there. But, and by the way, the whole thing with the judges doing everything so weird and scoring, they're not bad at what they did. They're doing it on purpose, because it's a sign of the future. You got to pick up on these signs. They're telling you that if you're a smart man, in the future, we're going to be giving you guys bad decisions, so expect it. Because look, we're trying to pretend like Mays won this fight, because we know everybody bet their money away. So when it looks like it's convenient for you guys, you can't say when it's not convenient for you guys and you lost your money that, look, you shouldn't have done that because you cashed in on a ticket where we did it last time. So that's why I said, even though I was right, I made the right call, the judges did something wrong. I'll tell you, even when I'm wrong, that guy did not do it right, even if I backed them up on it beforehand. Well, the judges gave me an idea, and that's why we're going to make our system better now. They're going to be giving us in the future more decisions like this to come. So we're one step ahead of them, and we're going to prevent that. And I'm already on top of how we're going to prevent them from being able to dip into our profits and our winnings. So don't worry about that, guys. Leave that up to me. Just follow my slips and take my advice and pay attention to my posts as soon as I do them, because you will get notifications if you're a Patreon member. And also, I'm thinking about, we're going to start doing companions. So if you're a Patreon, you'll see a notification to be able to join my companion. That's only for the patrons. Anyways, here we go. Back to what I was talking about. Hansen has shown me the worst IQ from a fighter I've ever seen. She was having such positions that she was dominating and she was in control of, that she started, even in those positions that she was dominating and being in control, where she was the one in the better positioning, she let McKinney score more points than her in those positions. So what would you have done if you were in the worst position? I can't even imagine. So she made a girl who was years and levels behind, that was losing positions in the scramble, score more points than her. And it still wasn't enough to on the scorecard. If you were taking scores and you did it correctly and you weren't trying to cheat and rob anybody, she still won. As bad as her IQ was, she still beat a girl like McKinney, because, like I said, she was years and levels beneath her as far as skill level. But her IQ made it possible for the judges to get one from under us. So I can't even be so mad at that one. But I'm never putting money on Hansen again. Granger did the same exact thing, just on a smaller scale, and she had a more of a formidable opponent, so I can't be mad. But she had situations where she was on the ground with a woman that is way better than her, levels beyond her, and she should know that she's not on her level on the ground in submissions, and she's like maybe a blue or a brown belt compared to a black belt in Yoder, and you're trying to stay and hang down there with her when you had chances of getting up. And not only that, okay, fine, if you decided to want to play with the black belt on the ground that's better than you, select your attempts more better. She had angles that she could have done easier submissions and went for the harder ones, the ones that were way less likely to be something that she can maneuver with or pull off. Like everything she showed me, from decisions to attempts that she chose to do over other ones, it was all bad IQ from her. So that's another girl I will never confidently parlay. I may, if depending on her opponent, maybe put some small money on her, but again, those days are over. We're being selective now. We're only putting the money on the people that are proven, who we've seen time after time utilize their game plan, and that we've seen them either making improvements or just too many times beforehand doing what they always are gonna do, and we can trust them to keep on continuing to do it. Let's move on to the next week's card. We've already wasted too much time on this. Back to the thing I was saying about the money marketing machine, which is why we're going to see the number 6 guy who's fighting on the same card as the number 2 guy. Brandon Moreno, who's fighting the Royval guy, who's a pretty decent prospect, don't get me wrong, but this is not a matchup that's going to be in his favor. He's fighting a guy who's going to be levels and way strong. It's going to be similar to the Tony Gravely fight, where they're both good in the certain area. They're both going to want to have the same type of a strategy, but Tony Gravely, as I told you guys, would be the much stronger guy, getting the better positioning because of his strength on the ground as opposed to his opponents. He'll always be the one getting the better in the scrambles, in the transitions, in the wrestling. So it's a similar situation with this fight. Brandon Moreno, the number 2 guy for a reason, who should be getting the championship fight instead of Perez, is going to walk through this guy. It's not going to be 2 because Royval's a game opponent. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a mismatch. And he's paying, if I can see this correctly, he's paying pretty good. He's not a huge favorite, so this is another card that we got some opportunities to make some good money on. So let's see. He is paying. Oh, only -1, because remember, these numbers are still early. Closer to fight night, these guys are going to be twice as less of a profit if you waited till fight night to lock these bets in. So we're going to take advantage of the line movement, as I always recommend. And instead of doing parlays, we're going to lock them in as straight bets only. And then after weigh-ins, after we see like how people look at and how their weight cuts went, and if they picked up any injuries during their camp, in sparring. So we'll wait to lock in parlays until I tell you to. But in the meantime, the guys who we don't have to worry about on single bets, like mismatches and stuff like, let me tell you another thing, but they want to build, the money marketing machine for UFC wants to build. The reason why Alex Perez is fighting him is not just because it's the perfect style matchup for Figueiredo, but they want to, Figueiredo has just recently become a champ, and he did it impressively. He beat the former champ very quickly, very let's see, how quickly did he get? My memory is not serving me as well. But let's see here. Figueiredo, let's see here. So Figueiredo is still unproven to the casual fans. These are the guys who are buying pay-per-views, whose ratings are helping us stay in #1, making UFC the biggest, best sport in the world right now. They're talking about being better than boxing. It's the new boxing. It's because of, I hate to admit it, casual fans. Casual fans is what's making the machine keep running the way it is and allowing us to see the best fighters in the UFC, because UFC can afford to keep them and pay them the way they like to. So, but the reason is because they have to build these fighters up. They don't want to put the #2 guy in with Figueiredo on his first title defense and make him look human. They want this guy to take people's heads off in the first round for the first 5 or 6 title defenses, so they can build a fight between him and the #2 guy. So it looks more sellable. There's a storyline behind it. People will be more interested. They'll see him as unhuman, and then when they see somebody else who could take the belt away from him, who then, if he does take the belt, will be more marketable, they'll see him as the new, like, superhuman guy who did the unthinkable, you know? So that's how it's like a WWF type of, a WWE type of marketing thing they're using, but which is smart. I agree, I get it, but I'm also going to take advantage of it. That's why a guy that you're going to give me, let's see what the odds are for the give me match here, by the way. Figueiredo is minus 300, so you got to bet 300 to win 100, which is not bad. Unless it's the guy slips on the banana and it breaks something, and even then, I still put probably some money on him. He's going to win these fights, and they're giving him a give me fight for a reason. The guy's #6, not #2, or whatever he is, for a reason. He's not, there's levels to this. He's not on this guy's level. This guy's only got 1 loss against the killer in his own right. For Mega, whatever it is, for me, I always have trouble with his name, but if you've seen Figueiredo's record, man, this guy, in my opinion, should have been a champion a long time ago. I don't know what took them so long, but again, because they don't put the #2, the real threat to the champion, in with the champion, so it's hard for the better people. That's why there's a lot of dark horses. I'm going to start talking to you. I'm going to start making more segments. Once I can do this full time, when I start to get more Patreon members and I can maybe get some sponsors or whatever, somebody to help us out, I'll start doing this full time, and I'll be talking to you guys and educating you guys on more of the dark horses of the division, so that when you do see them, because the best thing is when you see these dark horses, they line them up at almost pick'ems, because nobody knows about them. Even the odd makers, they get them wrong. Like the Stricklands, like Beneil Dariush's, Robert Whittaker last fight, he was an underdog against the guy who was just a knockout artist. He doesn't even have I cashed in nicely on him. He was like on 7 parlays. The Khabib card, I made over $10,000 in profit on only $2,000 or $3,000 in total of bets, because of 3 or 4 fighters on the card that were not lined correctly. So we got to take advantage of that. We got to take advantage of the line movement, the prop bets. You guys got to have confidence in somebody who knows what they're talking about. So that's why I also told you in the beginning of my videos, if you're going to follow me, if you're going to listen to my picks and my predictions, don't go to somebody else's channel after mine and then try to take notes on theirs. You're going to not only confuse yourself, but you're going to hurt yourself financially, because now you're going to be hesitant to pull the trigger on the bets that you should have pulled the trigger on and put more money on and would have won more money on, because other people are telling you pass or this or that. They're falling into the money UFC marketing machines tricks that they're giving you to make things seem like what they really aren't. So take it from somebody who's more experienced, who knows the marketing strategies behind everything, the politics behind everything. Why Israel Adesanya is getting the title fight against Jan, even though he's never had a fight in the division. He's jumped over the #1, #2, #3, #10 guy, and he's going to get the title fight. Like, I know these things and why they are, and that's why it also benefits me when I'm making my bets. So stay tuned, guys. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in the next video that's going to be strictly just about who's going to win, and I'm going to be more getting down to the nitty-gritty breakdowns and the stuff that's going to be making you guys more money. And hit the like, hit the subscribe, become a Patreon before the rates are subject to change. Right now they're at the lowest. I'll grandfather you guys in. You'll never have to worry about the rates going up on you that way. So get it in while you can. Thank you guys for your time. Good luck on your things, and see you guys soon on the next video. Way, I forgot to mention, we got a lot of underdogs on this card that we're going to cash in on. Some excellent value straight bets that we're going to cash in on. And just some more stuff that we got to take advantage of before the line movement. So hit the reminder bells to make sure that you get ahead of it as well. Because the next video coming up, I'm going to give you guys some excellent value plays that you want to move in on fast. Just single straight money line bets. And then also look out for the prop bets, because we win 100% for week after weeks, back-to-back weeks. Even on the Dana White series card, we win 100% on those. So those are the best paying ones. They got the highest value. They're usually because they're the more riskier ones, but I'm very selective on those. So stay tuned for the prop bets, Dana White Contender Series picks. So the midweek investment opportunities we'll be talking about, but more importantly, next week we got to get ahead of the line movie, because there's once again a lot of fights that the odd makers got wrong, and we got to take advantage of. Just like that Khabib card where we got Romanov on plus money, we got Tai Tuivasa at plus money. Robert Whittaker was the underdog. We cashed in on him, but on fight night, some of them were even turning into favorites. So we don't want to wait for that to happen. All right, guys, thank you for your time.